Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in Hollywood, California. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you joining me, us, a bunch of friends standing around a virtual water cooler, talking about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. We got a lot of stuff to talk about here today. The Godzilla vs. King Kong movie has got a new lead. Knives Out starts shooting. It looks like we're getting a Winter Soldier and Falcon TV series on the Disney streaming service. But before we talk about anything else, I got to talk about this. Okay, so just, you guys know, of course, we've talked about it ad nauseum. The whole James Gunn drama about, with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he's not directing anymore because of 10-year-old tweets and all this kind of nonsense. Now he's over at Warner Brothers. It looks like he is writing and probably is going to end up directing Suicide Squad 2. But, with a lot of fans love what they love, don't we? Like, we love what we love. And sometimes we're not the most rational bunch. Sometimes we want the impossible. Well, there are a bunch of fans who so badly want to see James Gunn back directing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And listen, there's a lot of us. A lot of us would have loved to have seen James Gunn come back to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He's not. It's over. It's done. We got to move on. But there are a bunch of fans who are so passionate about this topic that they have gone as far as to band together and put their money where their mouth is. And they have actually bought a billboard in Southern California just outside of where Disneyland is. Disney, of course, the company that owns Marvel. Take a look at this billboard that they have now put up together. This is a real thing. Save the Galaxy, it says. James Gunn for Volume 3. And they give their URL, rehirejamesgunn.com. So save the Galaxy, James Gunn. And again, this is just blocks away from Disneyland. This is just blocks away from Disneyland in Anaheim, California. So look, here's my thoughts on this. First of all, I applaud expressions of fandom. I do. I applaud expressions of fandom. I think this is great. There are a bunch of people that love James Gunn. They love what he's done with Guardians of the Galaxy. They want to see him back directing this thing. I applaud that. That's great. And they're even willing to go as far as to put their money where their mouth is and get themselves a billboard. That's great. I'm just going to say, while that's great, and I don't want to deter anybody from doing that, we do have to understand that's not going to happen. We got to understand that that is done. I've got no problem with fans still expressing their desire to see it. That's fine. But in the midst of that, we have to understand this is a done deal. Disney basically painted themselves into a corner when they put out the statement that they did regarding him. They doubled down on it, even though the cast came out and said they wanted him back, even though there's a lot of fans that wanted them back. Look, it's time to move on. You all know my position on this. If I was in charge at Disney, I would not have let James Gunn go. However, I do get why they did. I don't agree with it, but I understand. So whatever, bygones, right? But we do just have to know it's over. It's done. James Gunn has moved on. And by the way, at this point, I don't even think James Gunn would want to go back. Why would he? Why would he want to go back to the company that treated him that way? He's got Warner Brothers, Sony, Paramount, Universal. They were all lining up to work with him. He chose Warner Brothers. He's working on Suicide Squad 2. I think he's perfectly happy where he is. So while I totally applaud the effort, I do. I think it's great that fandom want to be proactive. Great. Just understand it's not going to change anything. James Gunn isn't coming back. As fun as that would be, he ain't coming back. All right, with that out of the way, let's talk about this next little story here. We all know that Meg, the Jason Statham film where, of course, Jason Statham gets in the water to exchange fisticuffs. There's a word you haven't heard in a while. Gets in the water to exchange fisticuffs with a giant prehistoric shark. I'll be honest with you. I didn't love Meg. I didn't. I thought everything that happened in the movie involving the shark was really fun. I thought everything involving the shark was really fun. However, a lot of the stuff that took place away from the shark was kind of cringy. And as much as I love Jason Statham, Lock, Stock, Snatch, his Transporter movies. I love him in the Fast and the Furious, obviously, his Crank movies. I love Jason Statham. For whatever reason, I felt like that wasn't a good fit for him, that movie. But a lot of people did like it. More importantly, a lot of people saw it. Well, no surprise here, but the producer of the film, who I believe her name is Catherine Ying. I believe that's her name. She was speaking at a conference in Los Angeles, and they announced, yep, they have already started working on Meg Sequel. So the story came out that they are already in the very early stages of putting together a Meg Sequel. And again, this really shouldn't come as any big surprise to us. I mean, the question can be raised, where do you go with Meg 2? I mean, narrative-wise, where do you go with Meg 2? Who knows? But seriously, look at this. When you look at the box office, though, of the first Meg movie, we're talking about a movie that, despite the fact that it only had a $45 million opening weekend, which was lower than what they were wanting, the movie still ended up making over almost $530 million worldwide. To put that in perspective, that $530 million worldwide number right now is more than what Venom made so far. I mean, Venom will probably pass that, but as of right now, Venom is still behind Meg. That's how much money Meg made. So you know they're happy with it. You know it was pretty much a no-brainer that they were going to do another one. Now, again, am I thrilled that they're doing another one? Not really, because I wasn't thrilled with the first one, but I can see where people had fun with it. I certainly had fun with a few moments of it, that's for sure. Overall, I wasn't thrilled with the movie, but from a business point of view, of course you do another one. Of course you do. You're printing money with this thing. It can be expensive to make. They'll probably bring all the original cast back that survived the original film, and Jason Statham will have another big franchise on his hand now that he's also doing Hobbs and Shaw. I'm really looking forward to Hobbs and Shaw, by the way. I think that's going to be balls to the wall awesome. I cannot wait to see that. So there you have it, guys. Meg 2, mark it down on your calendar. They're already working. It's not got the official green light yet, but they are working on it, and you know the green light is just going to be coming any minute now. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about this little piece of hot breaking news. We've known for a little while now that Kal-El Superman himself, Henry Cavill, who I think, by the way, is a terrific actor. He's great. I loved him in The Tudors. He was wonderful in that show. I thought he was great in Man from U.N.C.L.E. He was really solid in the most recent Mission Impossible film, but I have loved him as Superman. I just think he is a magnificent Superman. It's a shame we're probably not going to see him as Superman anymore. Now, but we found out a couple weeks ago that he is actually going to play Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher series. He was going to be starring in the Witcher television series that they are developing right now, and apparently they've already started shooting. And a lot of us got very excited about it. Well, this morning, no more than about a half hour ago, Netflix dropped the first images of Henry Cavill from The Witcher. Take a look at this. And you know, when you look at this image, it's not all that off. It's not all that far off. Ray, who's the name of the artist online who does all the stuff that everybody loves? Boss Logic, thank you. I love Boss Logic. Why did I freeze on his name? This doesn't look all that dissimilar from the image that Boss Logic put together not so long ago. I think he looks great. I think he looks great. I know a lot of people were really concerned. You're going to get the hair right. You're going to do this right. You're going to do that right. I think this looks fantastic. I really do. I think he looks wonderful. The most important thing, though, here is this, is that it looks good, yes. That doesn't mean the show's going to be good. He could have come out in an image and have it just look terrible. I mean, he could have had green short hair and a big heart tattoo on his forehead, and that would have been terrible, but it wouldn't have meant that the show was going to be terrible. And this is a great picture. It doesn't mean the show's going to be great. Here's the more important thing, though, for us to keep in mind. Here's why I believe this show has the potential to be really good. Number one, obviously, it's coming from some great source material. The storytelling narratives in Witcher have actually been pretty strong for video games. But you've got an incredible talent in the lead. So yes, I and you and we can all get big excited about the look of the image. It does look good. I'm excited for it. The more important thing, though, we got to keep focused on here is that we've got a great actor in the lead role. So if you're somebody who's been looking forward to a Witcher TV series, yeah, be excited about the picture. Be excited about the picture, but be more excited about the fact that you got great source material and you've got a great actor in the lead. And obviously he looks pretty good in the role. So I'm pretty stoked to see this. I think that's really great. So let's keep our eyes on this and can't wait to see our first bit of real footage from the show. That's going to be exciting, but we're still a long ways away from the show actually coming out. Okay, guys, with all that off the top stuff out of the way, let's get to our main topics today. How do we pick our main topics? Well, it's really quite simple. You guys actually pick out the main topics by emailing me your topics and questions to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less, or else I wouldn't even be able to fit them on the screen even if I wanted to. All right, with that said, let's get to the first email today. And the first email today comes to us from Tony Cooper, who writes, I've just seen that Warner Brothers is adapting Attack on Titan with IT director Andy Muschietti. Does the content mean it would have to be R-rated, and how much? Budget you need when all the announcements are giants, and you would have to have some pretty significant budget when all the things are giants. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Tony. And yeah, so this news kind of came out yesterday that IT director Andy Muschietti, who did such a great job with it, making like the biggest opening for an R-rated film in history, one of the highest grossing horror films of all time, did such a great job with that. They announced that they're doing a live action Attack on Titan. Now, Attack on Titan is very popular, has been very popular the last couple of years. For those of you who don't know anything about Attack on Titan, here's the basic Coles notes, all right? Humanity has been forced to live in these cities behind these massive walls because out of nowhere, these giant human-looking Titans, they call, show up. And what they do is they show up and they start picking up people and eating them, and it's gruesome. At least in the anime, it's pretty gruesome. And it's all that kind of stuff. And then there's these heroes that get together and they start to train and learn how they're going to do this and how they're going to fight against them, and hence there's your story. Now, actually, back in I believe it was 2015, I think, they actually put out a live action, I believe it was a Japanese version, live action version of Attack on Titan. And I think it was in 2 parts. And here's the thing, it was all kinds of terrible. I mean, it was all kinds of awful. I mean, and one of the things you can tell right away in watching the live action version of Attack on Titan was the fact that this did not carry with it the budget that they really should have needed. This movie clearly did not carry with it the budget that you clearly needed to tell a story like Attack on Titan and get the results that you want, right? And create the effect and create the emotion and create the impact you want. This is one of those stories where you really do need the proper budget. Money doesn't always solve everything when it comes to movies and storytelling, but sometimes money is needed. And this is one of those things where if you're going to create the emotional impact that is supposed to be felt by the audience, you do need to make sure that the visuals are up to scratch. You do need to make sure the visuals immerse the audience into that, to feel that horror, to feel that dread, to feel the impending doom with these Titans coming in and all that kind of stuff. You need that stuff, and that was something that the original live action film did not do a very good job on. So you're absolutely right. If you're going to do this thing, and it looks like Warner Brothers is behind this, if you're going to do this thing, you got to make sure, number one, that you do not cheap out on the film. Now, I'm not saying that an Attack on Titan has to be like a $200 million budget film. I'm not saying that at all. But you also can't make it as like a $70 million film. This is a movie that's going to require $140 to $170 million budget. You're just going to need that to do it right, to do it appropriately, to have much better impact and better effect than the 2015 version did. You're going to need that. So that's kind of obvious. The more interesting question to me, though, comes up in the realm of, well, does this thing have to be rated R? Now, if you guys have followed me and listened to me for any period of time, you know that to me, R-rated is overrated. You know, R-rated is often overrated. Sometimes it's very necessary and to great effect. But sometimes R for the sake of R doesn't help anybody. And I've even said before, when Deadpool was coming out and we didn't know it was going to be rated R, I said, look, we would all prefer Deadpool to be rated R, but there is a way to do Deadpool PG-13 and it could work out just fine. When a lot of people are saying Venom has to be rated R, I said, well, I mean, Venom rated R would be fun, but it doesn't need to be rated R when you really look at the character. I'm going to say this, and I don't say this often. I believe a Titan movie, yeah, I believe it's got to be rated R. And it's not just R for the sake of making it R. Don't make it R because it's cool to be rated R. That's not what I mean. But remember what I was just talking about a second ago about how you're going to do your visual effects in this movie. You have to do them right to create the emotional impact. The reality is, staying on that theme about emotional impact and narrative flow, is if you really want to create the powerful emotional impact that you get from the anime, you have to see the very gruesome things that humanity sees in that environment. Humanity in this story and in this world of this story sees horrific, gruesome, horrifying things. If the audience is also going to share in that emotion of the gruesomeness, the horror, the absolutely unimaginable, terrifying realities that they live in, if the audience watching this is going to feel that, and I believe feeling that is absolutely necessary. It's the foundation stone. If the audience doesn't feel it, this whole story falls apart. So it's foundational. If you're going to do that, yes, number one, you got to make sure your visual effects facilitate that. But then number two, I believe it's got to be rated R. I do. I believe to get that sense of horror, to get that sense of terror, to get that sense of doom and dread and awfulness and bleakness and hopelessness, we as the audience have to experience what those characters living in that universe are experiencing. And if you do a PG-13 version of it, I just don't know that it's going to have the same emotional impact. I just don't think it's going to have the same emotional effect. So even though I'm the guy who's always going, guys, R-rated is overrated, not everything has to be rated R, that doesn't, even though I'm the guy who usually says that, I'll tell you what, if you're going to do this one, give it the right budget, and you got to make it rated R, or else your narrative, you're going to impact it negatively from a narrative point of view, and that is something you cannot fail at, not in a story like this. And if you do it right, even though North American audiences have shown they are not all that inclined to rush out and see anime-adapted movies on the big screen, if you do this one right, I think this is a story that very well could resonate with a lot of the average movie-going audience, even those who have no, inclination towards anime stuff. I think this could be a big hit if you do it right. Will they do it right? Will it be a big hit? We'll have to wait and see, but I think this is great news about attaching this director, and I think if they approach it the right way, we could have a big hit on our hands. All right, let's move on to the next email. And the next email today comes to us from Fred Branson, who writes, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. Even with all the official talk about prequels and spin-offs, I've never actually thought that they'd really do them. But then I saw today that they hired Naomi Watts to star in the prequel show. I love her. 21 Grams is one of my all-time favorite movies. What do you think about her joining this new Westeros story? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Fred. And yeah, for those of you guys who didn't catch it yesterday, Naomi Watts, multiple Academy-nominated actress, has been cast to star in the prequel show. Now, as of right now, we still don't know a lot about the prequel show, but I'm going to tell you right now, I love this news. I love this news. You add a powerhouse actress like Naomi Watts to a highly anticipated show like a Game of Thrones prequel, you're starting off on the right foot. Because clearly they're going, okay, we've got this character, but we're going to need a performer that can pull off some really heavy lifting. We need an actress who can come in here and pull off the deep cuts. We need somebody here who can carry this, and they didn't mess around. They went out and got a two-time Oscar-nominated actress in Naomi Watts, and she's way better. I'm going to tell you this right now. Naomi Watts is way better than just a two-time Academy Award nominee. This is a woman who should probably have 4 or 5 nominations and maybe even a trophy on her mantle right now. She's just that good. Now, even though we don't know much about the project, what Deadline went on to tell us a little bit about what this prequel may be about, because I'll tell you right now, I've known nothing about the prequel. I just know that they were talking about doing a prequel series. I didn't know anything about it. But Deadline went in to talk a little bit about the series itself and about the slightest bit about what Naomi Watts' character could be. Here's what Deadline had to say. The untitled prequel takes place thousands of years before the events of Game of Thrones. It chronicles the world's descent from the golden age of heroes into its darkest hour. And only one thing is for sure. From the horrifying secrets of Westeros history to the true origin of the White Walkers, the mysteries of the East to the Starks of legend, it's not the story we think we know. The creative team behind the project is not giving away much about Watts' character, but she will play a charismatic socialite hiding a dark secret. Bum, bum, bum. Well, okay, yes, we know she's going to hide a dark secret. That kind of goes without saying in any kind of Game of Thrones. Every character in Game of Thrones, even the service wench, as they call her, they all carry dark secrets, so that's fine. I didn't know, though, maybe a lot of you guys did, but I don't really keep my ear to the ground on Game of Thrones stuff too awful much, although I do like the show. I didn't know they were talking about doing this prequel series thousands of years in the past. I didn't realize that. My assumption, which you know what they say about assumptions, but my assumption has been that this prequel series would happen decades before the events of Game of Thrones, maybe even a century or two before Game of Thrones. I had no concept that they were going to be doing this thing thousands of years earlier than that. But again, let's get back to the main issue here. Naomi Watts getting attached. If you are a fan of Game of Thrones, you must be thrilled with this. You have to be thrilled. So yes, again, we've mentioned the 2 Academy Award nominations, but let's look at some of the more notable films and the notable performances of Naomi Watts and what she's given us in her career, right? First of all, recently she was in Birdman with Michael Keaton. She was amazing. That one of the reasons that movie worked so well, obviously Michael Keaton was the lead of that, but Naomi Watts was terrific in it. Mulholland Drive is probably the movie that put her on the map for a lot of people. She, of course, was the lead heroine in King Kong. We obviously have 21 Grams. She was terrific in J. Edgar. Now, J. Edgar was a movie that had a lot of issues. It did. It had a number of issues, but the performances in it were stellar, including Leo DiCaprio, Armie Hammer, but Naomi Watts was terrific in that. And then, of course, she played with Viggo Mortensen in Eastern Promises, and she was also fantastic in that. Look, Naomi Watts is just one of those actresses where her representation doesn't always put her in the best movies, not always. Sometimes and she's in some questionable stuff. But she's one of these performers that when she is in a project, just take it to the bank. She's going to be great in it. She will give a great performance. And you can just count on that every time. And that's why somebody like me, who's a Game of Thrones fan, gets excited about this news. So again, we're a long way away from getting any real meaty stuff about the new show, but this is a great first step. So I, for one, am pretty excited. All right, let's move on now to the next email. And the next email today comes to us from Linus Lang, who writes, I know you love Rebecca Hall. Oh man, I love Rebecca Hall. You have no idea. I do too. So I wanted to know what you thought about her taking a lead role in Godzilla vs. Kong movie. The cast is already pretty stacked. Personally, I love it. But with such a big cast, do you think there is a risk that not enough screen time will be given to Kong and Godzilla? All right, thanks a lot for the question. And for those of you who missed the news that came out yesterday, Rebecca Hall is going to be starring what they're calling as the lead role. Now, I don't know if they mean the lead role or a lead role, but clearly she's going to be a significant character in this movie. And look, dudes, I have been a massive Rebecca Hall fan ever since she was in that movie, that Woody Allen movie called Vicky Cristina Barcelona, where she was like the third build person. You had Scarlett Johansson, Penelope Cruz, why am I forgetting his name? Fact checker Jonathan, the guy who plays the villain in No Country for Old Men. He won an Academy Award for it. Javier Bardem. Thank you so much. I love Javier Bardem. Why did I miss that name? So, of course, everybody talks about that movie because there's a threesome in it with Javier Bardem, Scarlett Johansson, and Penelope Cruz. And, of course, that gets everybody's attention. Of course it does. But I believe Vicky of Vicky Cristina Barcelona, or maybe she played Christine, anyway, was played by Rebecca Hall. And I'll tell you what, I thought she stole that movie. I thought Rebecca Hall stole that movie. In a movie with Javier Bardem, Scarlett Johansson, Penelope Cruz, I thought she stole the movie. And she's not even on the poster. But to me, it was her movie. I've been a huge fan of hers ever since. And every time she pops up in something, I get it. Even when she popped up in Iron Man 3, I got excited. And by the way, last year, or it might have been earlier this year, I forget a little bit, but she was in this movie with Luke Evans called Dr. Marston and the Wonder Woman, about the guy who created the Wonder Woman character. And it is amazing. It was one of my favorite films of the year. I loved it. And again, Rebecca Hall was just fantastic in it. So anyway, let's get on to the thing. So now she joins Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong, whatever it's going to be, in a lead role. Now, you bring up an interesting point. This is a stacked cast. And could a stacked cast like this kind of bring up the same problem we had with Kong, in that Kong, or with Godzilla, that Godzilla didn't get enough screen time? Could we get the same thing here? Because look at this cast. First of all, it's very exciting. You're talking about Alexander Skarsgård. You got Stranger Things' Millie Bobby Brown, who's, of course, going to be in the new Godzilla movie. You got Denai Guerrera from, of course, Walking Dead and in Black Panther. Rebecca Hall, Damian Bashir, Ziyi Zhang. Oh, my God, guys. You have no idea how long I was in love with Ziyi Zhang. Although back then, she used to go by Zhang Ziyi, so I don't know what is the proper way to say it at this point. Isa Gonzalez from Baby Driver, and Kyle Chandler. This is a powerhouse cast. And even though this is great, and this right here, this is a terrific cast that we should all be excited about, it does raise that one concern that you bring up. In the first Godzilla film, Godzilla's screen time suffered a lot, and they just kept the movie on the humans, like all the time. And even when we started to get Godzilla, they would cut away from Godzilla and go back to more humans talking. Let's get more humans talking. And that ended up being a source of frustration for a lot of fans. So now we've got Godzilla versus Kong, and what do? They add even more all-star cast. Now, I'm not saying that this definitively means that they're going to cheap out in how much Godzilla and King Kong they actually show us in Godzilla versus Kong. Not at all. I think maybe they've probably learned their lesson from the mistakes that were made in the first Godzilla film. But you would be forgiven, though, for raising it as a concern. It's like, well, wait a minute, with all this all-star talent, like, how much screen time is going to be left for Godzilla or for King Kong? It's understandable that you would feel that way. I'm going to be optimistic here, though. I'm going to be optimistic and believe that they learned their lesson from the first Godzilla. They heard the complaints. They heard the detractors from the first film. They understand that that was frustrating for the audience to have so little of the title character on screen. And I believe they're going to find a way to give us a good balance of human side of the story with the main event being Godzilla and Kong. Yes, I can see why you'd be a little bit concerned, but I'm going to be optimistic. I think they're going to find a way to balance that out. Am I right? Am I wrong? We're just going to have to wait a little while to find out. All right, let's move on now to the next email today. And the next email today comes to us from Taylor Harris. And Taylor Harris writes, "Greetings, Giovanni." Well, greetings, Taylor. Okay, so I didn't like The Last Jedi, but I've always been a big fan of Rian Johnson, especially Looper, and I just found out about his new film, Knives Out. I couldn't believe the cast he's got in it. It's insane. What does it say about Johnson that talent like this are lining up to work with him? All right, thanks a lot for the question. And yeah, Rian Johnson's been working on this new movie called Knives Out that he also wrote. And they're already started shooting. As far as I understand, they've already started shooting the film. That just came out. They've started shooting. Everything's in progress, all this kind of stuff. And the reports are he's going to do this film, finish it, and then he's going to move on and direct his currently untitled first episode of this new Star Wars trilogy that he's working on. Apparently he's writing all three, but he's only going to direct the first one, whatever. So he's going to finish Knives Out first, then he's moving on to Star Wars. And I remember the first guy they announced that was joining his movies called Knives Out is being described as an old-style murder mystery whodunit, which I'm a sucker for those. I love the sounds of that. But it caught my attention because the first guy who came on board with it was Daniel Craig, James Bond, who is wrapping up his James Bond career, moving on. And I love Daniel Craig. So they announced that Daniel Craig was going on board with that. I thought that's pretty cool, but it didn't stop at Daniel Craig. Check this out. Look at this cast. Look at this Murderer's Row coming up to bat here. You got Daniel Craig, who's of course Bond, Jamie Lee Curtis, who's just coming off of this huge smash hit with Halloween. You got Chris Evans. You got Ana de Armas. I'm not really sure I'm pronouncing it right, but of course she was the hologram that Ryan Gosling was in love with in Blade Runner 2049. She was great in Blade Runner 2049. A lot of people have been wanting to see more of her on screen. Then you've got Hereditary's Toni Collette, who's on. That's a lot of people's favorite movie of the year, by the way. Hereditary, there's a lot of people I know who think that's their favorite movie of the year. You got Zod himself, Michael Shannon, coming off of the Best Picture of the year in Shape of Water. Lakeith Stanfield, who I love this guy. I love this guy in Get Out. I love him in Atlanta. I did not love Sorry to Bother You, but a lot of people love that film. I hate that movie, but I was excited because he was in it. And of course, you got Don Johnson, the guy in the unenviable position trying to keep his career up with his daughter's career, Dakota Johnson. By the way, Dakota's got a movie in theaters right now in Bad Times at the El Royale. But of course, we got Miami Vice's Don Johnson. Look at this cast, guys. I mean, I think this is even better than the cast that we just looked at for Godzilla vs. Kong. This is Toni Collette, Jamie Lee Curtis, Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Lakeith Stanfield, Michael Shannon. Are you kidding me? This cast looks amazing. And, you know, going back to what you were asking in your email, does something like this, does this type of talent, especially like women like Jamie Lee Curtis and Toni Collette, who have having massive years, like this year has been great for both of them. What does it say, or does it say something about a director like Rian Johnson that all these people are just jumping up and wanting to be in a movie he does, even if it's just some little murder mystery whodunit film? I think it says a lot about Rian Johnson and his reputation in this town. People love this guy. People want to work with this guy. Everybody who's ever worked with him on any set just love him and talk about him glowingly. Now, whether or not the whole, yes, there was a big divide with what he did with Star Wars. Yeah. I mean, I liked it. I liked The Last Jedi, but I know a lot of my friends who didn't. You probably know a lot of people who didn't. It's a very divisive film. It is. But hey, he was stepping into the most beloved franchise of all time. He wanted to do something different. He wanted to change things up because so many people complained about The Force Awakens. You didn't try anything different. So he came in and did a bunch of things different. Worked for some people, didn't work for others. But beyond The Last Jedi, everybody loves this guy in Hollywood, and they want to work with him. And I think a cast like this does kind of speak to that. They've already started shooting this film. It comes out in 2019. I can't wait to see it. And obviously, I think a lot of people are going to be excited about it too. All right, let's move on now to the final email of the day. And the final email of the day today comes to us from Jamie Manchesi. I hope I'm saying that right, Jamie. Writes, hey, wow, I just read that Disney is developing a Falcon/Winter Soldier TV series for their Disney streaming service. They already announced a Loki series and a Scarlet Witch series. They are really going all in. I'm psyched. Question is, are you? Bring on the filthy. All right, thanks a lot for the email, Jamie. And yes, for those of you guys who saw, this just broke last night, and multiple sources, the major trades and others have confirmed this, Variety, Slash Film, everything, have confirmed that Disney is indeed developing a Winter Soldier and Falcon TV series for the upcoming Disney streaming service. This is the report that's flying around all over the place right now, and it's obviously got a lot of people excited. Now, there are multiple sources and multiple outlets reporting this, although they all do say that as of right now, Disney and Marvel are not giving any official comment on it, but it looks like it's pretty much a done deal when you got Variety and others and Deadline and Slash Film and things like that, all reporting that they have independent sources that are all confirming this. So, and it does make sense. It's consistent with the report that we found out a little while ago that they are doing a Loki series and that they're doing a Scarlet Witch series. Now, here comes a buddy cop series of Falcon and Bucky. Falcon and Winter Soldier together at last. Okay, so this is something a lot of people have been asking for ever since they had a chance to see their dynamic in things like Civil War and things like that. People have been wanting to see this series. And personally, I think it's a great idea. We love seeing these two guys together in the movies. I think it was a foregone conclusion that Disney would want to do more stuff with this pair of characters in there. But here's the intriguing thing to me. This report brings up some very interesting questions and some very interesting possibilities here. And follow me. Tell me what you think about this. Now, with the Loki series, the operating assumption here is that the Loki series is going to be somewhat of a prequel. that they're not bringing him back to life, that it's going to be something of a prequel, okay? That's fine. Scarlet Witch, probably not a prequel. Now, we know that in Avengers, minor spoiler alert for Infinity War, but if you haven't seen it by now, you don't care about it. In Infinity War, of course, both Falcon and Bucky dust. So they're both dead. Clearly, they're coming back too. Everybody's coming back in the MCU. So these guys are clearly coming back. Now, I saw some people mentioning, well, I bet this is going to be a prequel series too. This is going to be a prequel series. So they don't have to worry about the dusting. And my thing is this can't be a prequel series. Why? Because they just meet in Civil War, and at the end of Civil War, Bucky goes into freeze. He goes into the freezer. And then he stays in Wakanda until we see him again later, now, of course, known as White Wolf, which is another little wink of the eye to people who understand the history of the comics and stuff like that. But he's known as White Wolf now, all of a sudden, right? So there is really no time frame available to make a Bucky Falcon show a prequel to the events of Avengers Infinity War. There's just no viable time frame there. It has to be later. It has to be a sequel. It has to be further down the line. So I find that interesting that this is further down the line. Again, confirming that all these characters that died in Infinity War, they're all coming back. So, okay, there's that. Here's the other interesting thing to me. There has been a theory out there that a lot of people subscribe to. A lot of people subscribe to this theory that Bucky is going to become Captain America. Now, it's actually a theory built on another theory. The starting theory is that Captain America and Chris Evans is done after Avengers 4. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's a strong possibility, but I don't necessarily think that's true. But you take that theory that Evans is done in Captain America, Steve Rogers either dies or whatever. The theory that comes out of that is that Bucky becomes the new Captain America. You see, now I've never thought that that would happen, even if Chris Evans is done and they do have Steve Rogers die. I've never thought they would have Bucky as Captain America because within the MCU, that creates too many problems. For decades, he was a wanted terrorist, right? You can't suddenly make him Captain America. As far as we know, Tony Stark still wants to kill him. All right? There was never any moment of any time where Tony and Bucky got together and say, let's put it behind us, pal. No. As far as we know, if Tony and Bucky end up in the same room together, Tony is still going to try to kill Bucky because Bucky killed his mom, right? So there's just so many problems. But here's the thing. Does this pretty much confirm that Winter Soldier is not going to be your new Captain America? I mean, if they're doing a sequel to Avengers 4 with a series like this, and you've got Winter Soldier and Falcon, it's not a Captain America. You're not going to do a Captain America and Falcon TV series, right? So I'm kind of wondering if this news about them doing this show kind of points to the suggestion that, yeah, Bucky ain't going to become Captain America. And Falcon doesn't become Captain America. To me, there's one Captain America. That's Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers is Captain America. And if Steve Rogers ain't there, then Captain America isn't there. That's my theory. But John, in the comics, yeah, this isn't the comics. This is the movies, all right? I get it. I understand. There were different iterations of Captain America, and even he became Nomad, and I understand that. I know. It doesn't matter. To me, there is one Captain America, that is Steve Rogers. Just like I know Dick Grayson wore the mantle of the Bat. I know Jean-Paul wore the mantle of the Bat. I know different people have taken on the Batman mantle. Doesn't matter. I know there's a Batman Beyond nonsense. Doesn't matter. There is one Batman, and his name is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is Batman. Batman is Bruce Wayne. You can have somebody else dress up and pretend to be Batman. That's fine. But Batman is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is Batman. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Captain America is Steve Rogers. That's the way I see it forever and ever. Amen. That's the way I see it. That's the way I think everybody should see it, but obviously not everybody does, and that's fine. But yeah, I don't want to see Bucky become Captain America, and I think maybe this new show might suggest that I'm going to get my wish, and he's not becoming Captain America. But we will have to wait and see. What do you guys think? Are you excited about this news that's coming out about this show? What do you think the implications of such a show are to the MCU as a whole? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. That'll do it for all of our main topics today, but we're going to save a little bit of time here and take some of your live questions. A bunch of you guys have already been firing in a whole ton of live questions, so let's dive over to the live question board right now and see what you guys are saying. And we're going to start with Dalton Burdett, who writes, I know this is random, but what are your thoughts on Con Air? With John Malkovich and Nicolas Cage? I thought it was fun. That's a fun movie. And not like as good as like some other Nick Cage. I feel like not as good as The Rock or anything like that. And it's not the best thing we've ever seen John Malkovich in either. But I think Con Air is a good, brainless, fun action film that you can sit back and enjoy, much like in the vein of a Face Off or something like that. I like Con Air. Donaldo Martinez writes, do movie studios save money from releasing digital movies? In other words, they don't have to make as many physical disc copies. Oh yeah, it is cheaper for sure. It's absolutely cheaper for studios to distribute digital films as opposed to building physical media. Then just forget the cost of making the discs, making the printing, doing the packaging, all that. Forget that. Now you got to ship all this stuff. And this ain't putting a 45-cent stamp on a letter, ladies and gentlemen. You're talking about shipping hundreds of thousands of copies around the country and around the world. Yeah, digital's a lot cheaper. They do save money doing it that way. Kick It to the Kings Productions writes, I am now convinced that Disney could possibly put their live-action remake sequels, i.e. Jon Favreau's Jungle Book 2, straight to stream and use their movie slots for more original/remake movies. I don't know if I agree with that. It all depends on what their philosophy is. Look, if they think a Jungle Book 2 movie is a contender to be really good and they're going to put $150 million into it, look, it does. Yeah, streaming is getting bigger and bigger, but make no mistake about this. Here's the truth, and I've had tons of studio executives confirm this to me a million times over. The real money is in theatrical distribution. The real money is by putting your movies in theaters. That's where you make real money. Yes, there's money to be made. There's big money to be made in streaming. There's big money to be made in this. And yeah, there's money to be made elsewhere too. But if you're going to be a studio and put together, if you're going to be a Disney and you've got this IP like Jungle Book that you think could possibly make you $700-800 million at the box office, you're not going to forego the movie theaters. You're not going to bypass the movie theaters on a movie you think could make like $500-600 million. The only reason a movie like Irishman is going straight to Netflix is because none of the other studios believed that they could actually put this movie in theaters and actually make enough money to recoup what they get. They just didn't think enough people would want to come out and be interested in seeing it. And I think they're correct on that. It doesn't mean the movie's not going to be great. Very well could be great. I mean, look who's in it, and it's a Martin Scorsese film. But yeah, so I'm not really sure. It all depends. Look, if they want to make a Jungle Book 2 and only spend like $40 million on it, well, then, yeah, if you're going to cut it short and you're going to do something like that, then yeah, put something like that straight to streaming. But if you believe there's potential there for it to make $500 million, $600 million, you're not going to do that with the streaming service. You got to put that stuff in theaters and then put it on your streaming service after it's been in theaters and made you all that money. So that's the way I kind of see it. And I could be wrong, could be dead wrong about that, but that's just kind of how I see it. All right, Kick It to the King follows up with, I finally got my first full-time job offer at a news station on my birthday. Congratulations, man. That's awesome. Which sadly was the same day I spoke at my grandpa's funeral. There's two extremes there. P.S. Grit and grind is the mantra for the Memphis Grizzlies. I did not know that. First of all, deepest condolences on the passing of a family member. I'm very lucky to be a guy my age, and I've only ever lost one grandparent. At my age, I've only ever lost one grandparent. So, I mean, I'm really lucky. So deepest condolences to that, but super exciting, man. That you got the job, I think, in the career that you wanted to go in. That's super exciting. Kudos to you. Make sure you have a good one today. All right. Manuel Fernandez writes, Happy Halloween. Yeah, today's Halloween, isn't it? I keep forgetting that today's Halloween. I totally forgot about that. Okay. Happy Halloween, John and Courtney. By the way, You guys know Movie News Feed hasn't been running. Movie News Feed is coming back in a couple of weeks, and Courtney's going to be continuing to write and produce those, which I'm really excited about. Anyway, question for you. What are some of your favorite horror movies? P.S. I know you love American Werewolf, John. What are some other ones? Well, yeah, American Werewolf in London is my all-time favorite horror movie. I've mentioned that 1,000 times. My second favorite horror movie of all time is The Descent. That movie is just creepy on so many levels. I just love it. Let's see. I mean, there are some recent ones that have been fabulous. Lights Out was just little horror movie that could, based on a YouTube short film, got turned into a full-length feature, did a great job. Don't Breathe from just the other year was fabulous. I thought that was terrific. It was great. You know, I can go back to a lot of horror movies I used to watch as a kid. Like, I'm not a huge horror aficionado like some other people I know in this business. But, yeah, those are some of the ones that I really like and I've thought about a lot lately. All right. Jabin Carter writes, Charles, why do you ask Super Chats to which you already know the answer? Oh, well, that's a quote. Like, just change Super Chats to questions from the original X-Men movie. I think it's from, like, the first scene in the movie, when they're at, like, there's a United Nations meeting going on talking about mutants, and Charles Xavier's there, and he notices that Magneto's there. And as Magneto's leaving, Charles catches up and says, what are you doing here, Eric? And Eric says, Charles, why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers? That was a terrible Ian McKellen impersonation, by the way. But anyway, yeah, I love that line. Let's see, where are we both? Okay, Manuel Fernandez writes, in terms of both quality and interconnectedness, which is better, the MCU, 20 films, 4 crossovers, or Arrowverse, 4 shows, 20 seasons, 7 crossovers? Oh, that's easy, the MCU. The Arrowverse has done a very admirable job. And I like a lot of the stuff going on in the CW Arrowverse. A lot. I love Black Lightning. I'm a big fan of The Flash. Wasn't a big fan of last season of The Flash, but this season seems to be back on solid ground. I like certain seasons of Arrow. They do a very, very good job. But as far as pure quality goes, it's great for CW TV, but it's nowhere near the quality as the MCU. I mean, nowhere near. Like, it's not even worth a discussion, to be honest. It's nowhere close. It's all subjective, of course, but in my opinion, it's not even worth a conversation. And I also think the interconnectedness is also much more there for the MCU. Although, again, that's not me casting any shade on the CW Arrowverse, because I think they've done a very good job. Certainly better than Marvel has with their television offerings. So anyway, that's just kind of my thought on that. All right. Dan Bondi writes, oh, honey, such a long day of bounty hunting. Okay, so that's my quote from yesterday, talking about, you know, what are you going to do with a Boba Fett movie? Just have him kick up his feet, take his helmet off and go, open the paper. Oh, honey, had such a long day of bounty hunting. It was one of the reasons why I'm not so upset that they're not going to pursue I've never wanted them to pursue a Boba Fett movie. I'm perfectly happy that they're not doing that. Ali Hussein writes, over under 50% that we get Lion King teaser trailer before the end of the year. Woo! You know what? With Mary Poppins coming, I mean, it's tough because they've got a couple of big films they're needing to start really promoting. Lion King and Aladdin. Now, we got our first Aladdin teaser. So, you know what? I'm going to take the over 50%. I'm going to take the over on 50%. I believe we are going to get our first tease look at Lion King before the end of the year, which is coming up quick. I mean, it's November tomorrow. So it's coming up quick. So I'm going to take the over on that. I think we will get a first tease or a first announcement trailer, our first look at the Lion King movie before the end of December. Rami J. Royster writes, trailer for Happy Death Day 2 was hilarious. Better than Holmes and Watson. Oh, that's for sure. Thoughts on the latest season of Arrow so far? Haven't started watching this season of Arrow. I've got too much other stuff to get caught up on. Arrow's not high on my priority list right now. So I haven't started seeing that. But yes, the Happy Death Day 2 trailer was pretty funny and absolutely was better than that Holmes and Watson trailer. Robert Perez writes, happy Halloween, everybody. So a happy Halloween to everybody from Robert. Thanks for writing that in, Robert. Kevin Brown writes, The Haunting of Hill House. Wow. Before A Quiet Place, I've never been so emotionally invested in a horror movie / show. It's so freaking good. Have you seen it? I did watch the first episode. the other night. It was me, Ann, and Ray. Ray, who's sitting over there, who was Ann's brother. Ray spent most of the show doing this, head down, and trying to type and keep himself distracted. Like, then he'd watch the show. You did this. He's watching the show, and as it's just two people in a cafe he's watching, and as soon as you hear some eerie music like, Ray's like, okay, and he turns his head away and looks away. It's pretty good. It's freaky. So I saw the first episode when I was getting ready for bed last night. Ann watched 1 or 2 episodes last night. 3? It was really good. Okay. Okay, Ray says now he's invested, and if he's invested in something horror, you know it's high quality. So I've watched 1 episode. I liked the first episode a lot. I still got to do Daredevil season 3 though. I've got to get through Daredevil season 3, and then I do think I'm going to pick up on Haunting of Hill House. I keep wanting to say the House on Haunted Hill is what I want to say, but anyway. Okay, let's see. Rami J. Royster writes, I'm sorry, Tony. You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice, but he's my friend, so was I, from Civil War. I think that was the line. Out of all the marketing for Civil War, that was the line. But he's my friend. So was I. Or I was too, or whatever the exact line. That was the one that got, and just got everybody. That's the one that got every powerful moment, powerful line. Adam Douglas writes, with Tomorrowland, Finest Hours, BFG, Wrinkle in Time, and now Nutcracker bombing, is it time for Disney to step back from big budget non-Disney IP films? I don't know about that. Tomorrowland was certainly worth taking a shot on, but you know what? There's a couple of movies on that list that are actually pretty good. I liked Finest Hours. I thought Finest Hours was a good film. I thought BFG was a completely delightful movie. I liked BFG a lot. I thought it was totally delightful. Wrinkle in Time, not so good. I did not like Wrinkle in Time. So I think part of it is that it's not a matter that it's non-Disney IP. I just think they didn't do a very good job with a lot of these in marketing. The BFG was not marketed right, like at all. And it's a good movie. I thought it's a totally delightful, enjoyable movie. I like that one a lot. I also liked Finest Hours. I thought Finest Hours was pretty solid. I had some issues with it. Tomorrowland was okay, but I mean, nothing great. You could tell from the marketing it was going to have issues. So no, I don't think the issue here is, Disney shouldn't do non-Disney IP movies. I don't think that's the issue here. I just think they've had a number of these films that they've done that they didn't quite know what to do with from a marketing point of view, and a couple of them just weren't strong movies. Tomorrowland was not strong. Wrinkle in Time was not strong. Nutcracker is not strong. That's really more an issue than anything else. A couple of them were pretty good, BFG, Finest Hours, but they need to do a much better job marketing those things. So no, I don't think the issue is that they need to stay away from movies that aren't Disney IP. I don't think that's the answer here. Edgar Magana writes, thoughts on Officer and a Gentleman. I loved it. Officer and Gentleman was great. Love lifts us up where we belong. That's where that song came from. By the way, you're welcome for that. You had Lou Gossett Jr., who actually won an Academy Award for that movie. He won Best Supporting Actor for that. I was going to say starring Ryan Reynolds. No, the guy from Pretty Woman, Richard Gere. I kept wanting to say Gary. I knew there was a G. Richard Gere. Fabulous movie. It's great. And still one of the best military sergeant speech scenes of all time. Do I look like a you boy? Oh my God, that scene is so good. If you haven't seen Officer and a Gentleman, check it out. It's really, really good. KW Garrett 83 writes, damn, your merch store doesn't sell Flubber-Dooblers. That's right. By the way, I haven't announced it yet because Ray and I need to get a couple of more things put in there, but we did officially launch the John Campea Show merchandise store online. And it's there. There's a bunch of things. Right now, there's just 2 designs. There's the John Campea Show logo design, and there's a Bring on the Filthy design. Both of which put together by Ray Ora, ladies and gentlemen, who did a great job with those. But I haven't really been marketing it that much because we're getting a Winning Cures Everything shirt that we're going to be putting up in there. We got a few other things we're going to put up in there as well. But yes, the merchandise store is there, but I couldn't find a company that could produce Flubber-Dooblers for me, but I'll see if we can get something like that coming in the future. Leo Milmet writes, I think Batman and Robin is underrated. Okay. Michael Gow's great. Silverstone's okay. Clooney is not terrible. And it has an amazing production design. Just kidding. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, all film is subjective. And believe it or not, there are people out there who like Batman and Robin, and that's cool. But yeah, for a lot of us dudes, it's like one of the worst films ever. Edgar Magana writes, thoughts on Jeepers Creepers. First and second one were good, and the third is completely terrible. I'd love to see a reimagining with a new continuity, new talent involved. I'll tell you what, I didn't like the second one either. I mean, obviously I didn't like the third one, but I didn't like the second one either. The first one is great. And it starred Justin Long, who I love Justin Long. I am flabbergasted that he is not a big A-list star today. I really am, because I think that dude's terrific. But anyway, that first Jeepers Creepers, going back to one of the other older questions, some of my favorite horrors, that's one of my favorite horrors. The original Jeepers Creepers is great. And if you've only ever seen the second or third one, wipe that taste out of your mouth. Go back and watch the original, because the original is pretty damn good. Dan Bondi writes, Netflix peeped Henry Cavill as The Witcher. Yep, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show. Looks great to me. Ali Hussein writes, just a speculation. I'm not saying it's going to happen. There is one way that Venom can get the Spider-Man power without him. What if they introduce Silk in the sequel? She kind of has the same powers. Well, Venom already has his powers. I mean, it's not like he gets his powers from Spider-Man per se. So it's not really something that they need to do. I mean, look, they are going to introduce side characters. Right? They're going to bring in side characters for sure. I mean, Silk could be something that they do, but it's not necessary for that. So it's the first Venom movies clearly show they don't need Spider-Man there to get his abilities, to get his power. The symbiote's got the powers, man. He's got all the powers that he needs. Jeremy Miller writes, audio is a bit grainy and way too quiet with headphones. Well, we're working on audio, guys. We're working out a bunch of things here. It's a little bit more tricky to deal with than when you're just sitting with your own computer, so we'll get that worked out. Patrick Conway writes, where'd Patrick go? There it is. Patrick Conway. Okay, guys, we've just got a couple of minutes left here, so I'm just going to rush through these last number of questions just so we make sure we get them all answered. Patrick Conway writes, Richard Donner would be a great showrunner for Falcon / Winter Soldier, a true MCU lethal weapon with the two of them. I don't know if yeah, maybe. It's not a bad thought. I personally, that's not the way I would go, but it's not a bad thought. I'm Upset writes, chances of Paul Blart 3. Hey, listen, don't laugh. Considering how much they spent on making those movies and the fact that they did make a bit of money and they're pretty simple and easy to make, I would not fall out of my chair from shock if they did do one, so don't laugh. Jeff Jordan writes, how far into Mayans are you? Thoughts? I'm about 5 or 6 episodes into Mayans. I'm enjoying it a lot so far. Not as good as Sons of Anarchy, but I'm enjoying it so far. I'm getting into it quite a bit. So I think they're up to episode 9 or something like that now. But anyway, I'm around episode 5, kind of slowly waking my way through, but I'm enjoying it. TJ Thomas writes, have you ever seen the anime movie Grave of the Fireflies? Yes, very emotional and great movie in general. Yeah, but depressing as all hell. That isn't a movie you watch before going to a birthday party. That's a movie you watch and then sit at home alone in the dark crying, eating a bucket of ice cream. That's a depressing as hell movie, man. I mean, it is powerful and it's beautiful and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to lie to you. You watch that movie, you just feel like shit at the end of that movie. That movie's done and you just want to sit there in the dark and cry. Beautiful, yes. Powerful, yes. But you know what? It reminds me a lot of Schindler's List. Beautiful, powerful, all that kind of stuff. Although Schindler's List is far more uplifting. Although that's not usually a term you use for Schindler's List, but it's far more uplifting. But like that, it's a movie that I think is great, but I can't go back and watch multiple times. I can't go back and watch Schindler's List many times. I can't go back and watch Grave of the Fireflies. I don't know that I can ever watch it again. It's just so depressing. It's just so depressing. Curtis Lopez writes, I noticed Vera Farmiga is not in Kong vs. Godzilla cast. Possible she dies in King of Monsters. I think it's a high possibility, but it kind of looks like she's the semi-antagonist of the movie anyway. So I was kind of guessing that she dies in the movie regardless. But I think her not popping up in the cast of King of the Monsters probably indicates, well, either she dies or she ends up in prison, right? Maybe she dies, maybe she ends up in prison, one of the two. But I think her dying is a definite possibility. Radhames Riaz writes, in the other streaming? Did you mean streaming? And the other streaming services are going to suffer because Disney's streaming service. Oh, I get it. Because it's Halloween. You're saying screaming. I got you. Are the other streaming services are going to suffer because Disney's streaming service is coming strong to their competitors? Yeah. yeah, you're talking about a market that is now becoming very saturated, right? I mean, Netflix is, Netflix, a pay service. Then you can do HBO streaming service. And then you can get Showtime as a streaming. Then you get Stars as a streaming service. And then there's Hulu, of course. And then there's Sling TV. And then there's this and that. And then there's the Disney streaming service. Now there's a DC streaming service. And now Warner Bros. Has other streaming services too. Disney's also going to be coming out with an ESPN streaming service. I mean, we are getting into a position that we are going to be spending more money for our television entertainment than we were when we were all using cable. It's coming. I still don't, I cut the cable 7 years ago. And today I still don't spend as much on all my streaming services as I did on my cable bill. But it's coming. And when the Disney service launches, a lot of people are going to have to make some decisions. Can I have the Disney streaming service and Netflix and Hulu and HBO and the DC streaming service? I mean, we're now getting to the point where consumers are going to have to start making decisions about which ones they keep and which ones they don't. So it's going to be disruptive. It will. It's not like it's going to be a $50 service. What do they say? It's going to probably be like a $10 a month service, probably. I'm not sure. But it'll still be disruptive. People are going to have to make decisions. All right, Jeff Jordan writes, re-releasing Deadpool 2 as a PG-13 in theaters during the Battle Royale week in December seems like a dumb move to me. Why would Fox do this? Because I don't think it's going to cost them that much. By the way, we don't know for sure that it's just a PG-13 version of Deadpool 2. A lot of people are making that assumption, and that might be the case. But I've never seen any official confirmation saying that's the case. But here's the thing, even if it is, they were probably able to you could slap that together, shoot some additional stuff, and distribute it probably for like $5 million. Probably for like $5 million. It's going to make more than $5 million when they put this thing out. It's going to make more than $5 million. So, I don't know. It seems like they want to get in the party. Look, if this was a brand new Deadpool movie that they spent $100 million to make, that would be an idiotic move. But something like this, where at most they're probably spending closer to like $2 million on this thing. But in a situation like this where they're spending so little, probably not that bad of a move. Let's see. Stubble McShave writes, Rogers dies or leaves. Captain Marvel picks up the role as leader of the Avengers, and Bucky picks up the shield, leaving with Falcon, starting their own series. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with any of that. Number one, I don't see any reason to believe that Captain Marvel becomes the leader of the Avengers. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but I don't see anything. Like, she's never even been in the MCU yet. Is that your new leader of the Avengers just like that? I'm not sure about that. I'm also not sure that Rogers dies or leaves, and I really don't think that Bucky picks up the shield. I mean, as of right now, even Captain America doesn't have the shield, remember? He doesn't even have a shield right now. So, I mean, all of that is possible. All of that is possible. I'm not sure I'd put my money on it, though. We'll have to wait and see. All right, and the final question today, Jewish Singer 613 writes, I noticed that AMC Theaters now has Prime at AMC and Dolby Cinemas at AMC. What's the difference between the two? Looked on their website and it's not very clear. I've been asked this question many times, Jewish Singer. I've been asked this question many times. To be honest, I don't know. I mean, I haven't worked with AMC Theaters in about 2 or 3 years. So, and when I was there, it was just, Dolby Cinema at AMC. It was Dolby Cinemas at AMC Prime is what it was. Now they seem to have Dolby and Prime as two separate things. At my local theater, the AMC Burbank 16, they do have a Prime theater and a Dolby Prime theater. They both have the big leather recliners. They both have great sound, great picture. I honestly don't know what the difference is. I haven't talked to anybody from AMC to find out. My guess, and this is just a guess, I don't know this for sure. My guess is that in the Prime theater, they don't have the dual laser projection system that they have in the Dolby theater at AMC. But they might. I just simply don't know. The best thing to do is to walk into your local AMC and just ask the manager. Say, hey, I'd like to speak to the manager. Say, hey, I noticed you got a couple different theaters. You got a Prime, you got Dolby. It used to be Dolby Prime. What's the difference between the two? And that's probably the best place for you to get your answer. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. Listen, it is Halloween. I hope you guys have a fantastic time. Go out, party up, have a good time. Just do me a favor and understand this. If you drink and drive, you are one of the world's biggest assholes. So please, don't be one of the world's biggest assholes tonight. Go out with your friends, have a good time, but make sure you got at least one of you guys that ain't sloshing it up, or make sure you're already planning in advance to take Uber or Lyft or something like that. Let everybody else be safe out there tonight too, so they can have a good time and you guys can have a good time too. And guys, hey, I would love it if you are dressing up for Halloween, whatever, email me some of your best cosplay tonight. Email me some of your best costume stuff tonight. Just email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. I would love to see some of your images. I'll tell you what, I'll pick out some of my favorites and I'll share them on the show tomorrow if you guys send them in. But I'd love to see them and I will share some of them. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for now. Just so you know, later tonight, The Weekly Hero returns. Me and Robert Meyer Burnett talking about all the stuff going on in the world of superhero movies and television. That returns today in time for Halloween. Make sure you guys check that out. That'll do it for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.